Okay, let's just briefly look at plexus, and in particular your brachial plexus, which goes on to innervate your upper arm, which we're entering. And one thing about a plexus, or the nervous system, that you need to realize is that it's not that it goes in a direct line, right? So your nerves exit your spinal cord, and then they combine with other levels, and then they branch off. And it gets very complex, and actually the definition of a plexus is a braid, and it does that to keep you functioning, right? So if you have any insult to part of one of your nerves, that it doesn't completely wipe out all upper limb function. So the complexity is keeping you safe. So just kind of remember this as you fight through the content. So your brachial plexus is coming off the ventral rami of spinal nerves C5 to T1, and it innervates the muscles of the pectoral girdle and the upper limb except for the trapezius. It supplies all innervation except in the axilla, and this is what happens. So after it exits the intervertebral foramen, it forms trunks. Superior, middle, and inferior. And we'll look at a visual in a minute. And then after, so I just said this, after emerging from the intervertebral foramen, and think about this, intervertebral, these are holes or foramen that are formed between vertebra. And then it tells you which ones are which trunks. So C5 and C6 form the superior trunk, C7 is the middle trunk, C8 and T1 form the inferior trunk. All right, and then it branches again. Each trunk splits into an anterior and posterior division, right? So they combine, and now they're splitting anterior and posterior. Anterior divisions typically supply the flexor muscles. Posterior divisions typically supply the extensor muscles. And then we merge again into cords. The lateral cord is formed of the anterior divisions of the superior and middle trunks. The posterior cord is formed by all three posterior divisions. And then you have your medial cord, which is formed by the anterior division of just the inferior trunk. And the cords are based mainly on position. So let's take a look. So here are intervertebral foramen. And so the nerves exit, and they form superior trunk, middle trunk, and 8 and T1 form the inferior trunk. And then they separate into anterior and posterior, right? So this is posterior, posterior, posterior forms the posterior cord. And then you have these anterior divisions form the lateral cord, and then the anterior division of the inferior trunk forms the medial cord. And then these go on to innervate the muscles that you'll be learning of the upper limb. And this is basically the breakdown. Musculocutaneous nerve is all anterior arm muscles, biceps brachii, brachialis, etc., coracobrachialis. The median nerve is on the anterior lateral forearm, right? Remember, your thumb is lateral on the radial side, your pinky is on the ulnar side or the medial side. The ulnar nerve is on the medial side, near your ulna, near your pinky. The radial nerve basically does your entire posterior arm and forearm, so triceps brachii and all wrist extensors. And then your axillary nerve gets the shoulder region. And it's always easier once you get into, say, the upper and lower limbs, either of the upper limb and the lower limb. It's always a little bit more confusing, muscles of the hip and muscles of the shoulder complex.